I was the angriest person in every room I entered. Then I learned there was another way to be. Someone I work with passed me this thread after I told her a little of my story at a staff dinner. She said there are people on there who wrote theirs down. She said it might help to read them, and it might help more to write mine. She's probably right on both counts, so here it is. Hi, my name is Simone. I am 30 years old. I am the assistant general manager at a full-service hotel in Philadelphia. I earn $78,000 a year plus bonus. I have an apartment I love, people I trust, and a version of myself I worked very hard to become. The version of me at 15 would not recognize any of this. The version of me at 15 would probably have had something to say about it that I cannot repeat here. I want to tell you about the growth between these 2 points in my life. I grew up in West Philadelphia in a house that I will describe as loud and leave it at that. My mother, Tanya, was present in the physical sense. She was there, she worked, she came home, she ate, she watched television, she slept, she did it again. What she did not do was parent in any intentional way. There were no rules that were enforced consistently. There was no structure, there was no conversation about the future or expectations or what was possible. There was just the noise of daily survival and the understanding, unspoken and total, that you figured out your own life because nobody had the bandwidth to figure it out for you. My father was not there. He had never been there in any way that counted. I want to be careful about how I describe myself as a child, because I think it is easy to make this kind of story into something where the child was the problem. I was not the problem. I was a child who had been given no tools and no model and no information, and who responded to that the only way she knew how. I was angry, constantly, specifically, and at everything. I was angry at school in ways that got me suspended 3 times before 8th grade. I was angry at home in ways that mostly went unaddressed because Tanya did not have the energy to address them. I was angry at people on the street and in stores and on the bus. I was loud and confrontational, and I took up space in the aggressive way that people take up space when they have never been taught that there is a gentler way to exist. I was not stupid. I was reading above my grade level from a young age. I noticed things. I remembered things. I had opinions that were more thoughtful than my behavior suggested. I just had no framework for any of it, and no one who took the time to help me build one. When the majority of the people in your short life all model bad behavior, manners, and thinking, it rubs off on you. You are the company you keep. But that is not something a child in that situation can even conceive of as a concept when everyone around them acts like that. I knew nothing else. By 15, I had been in 2 fights at school that resulted in a suspension and a referral. I had been picked up by police once for being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. I had been expelled from one school and transferred to another. I was cycling through friends the way you cycle through things that do not last when the environment does not support anything lasting. I can hear you now, and I'm with you. Yes, I had teachers, resource officers, school staff, all these people to model good behavior. But when you see your family change the way they behave and speak around these people or at their jobs, you just think everyone is fake. Those teachers and staff all go home to behave the same as your parents. But I digress. My house was loud. A neighbor called Child Protective Services after a particularly bad night at our house. I do not know exactly what she reported. I know that a caseworker came, and I know that things moved quickly after that, and I know that within 2 weeks I was placed with a family in the northeast part of the city in foster care. I arrived at the Kellerman house with a garbage bag of clothes and a look on my face that made sure everyone in that house knew within the first 5 minutes that I was not here to be grateful. I was not going to be here long. I was not going to follow their rules. I was not going to pretend this was my family because it was not my family, and I knew the difference. Mr. and Mrs. Kellerman were a couple in their 40s with a biological teenage son named Eli and a foster daughter named Amber, who had been placed with them about 8 months before I arrived. Amber was 16. She was quiet and watchful and did not try to be my friend immediately, which I respected, even though I would not have said so at the time. My first week in that house was a study in culture shock that I did not have the vocabulary to name. They ate dinner together, every night, at a table, with the television off. They asked each other about their days and actually listened to the answers. Mr. Kellerman made a joke and everyone laughed, including Mrs. Kellerman, who had heard it before. Eli complained about a teacher and his parents did not dismiss it or tell him to be quiet. They asked follow-up questions. I sat at that table the first night feeling like I had wandered onto a television set. I did not know how to participate. I did not know the rules of this particular performance. I said something sharp when Mrs. Kellerman asked me a question, and the table went briefly quiet, and Mr. Kellerman looked at me in a way that was not angry but was very clear, and he said, "We do not talk to each other that way in this house." I almost laughed. I almost said something worse. Instead, something stopped me. I do not know exactly what it was. Maybe it was the calmness of how he said it. Maybe it was the fact that he did not escalate. Maybe it was just that I was tired in a way I had not admitted to myself yet. I said nothing, and I ate my dinner. Amber came to my room that night. She knocked, which nobody had ever done at my mother's house. I said, "What?" She opened the door and leaned against the frame and looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "I know it feels fake, but it's not fake. It just takes a while to understand what it actually is." I told her I did not need her to explain anything to me. She said she knew. She said she was not explaining, she was just saying. Then she said, the thing that helped her most was watching how they talk to each other, not what they say, how, and she left. I did not think about what she said for about 3 days. Then I started thinking about it. I started watching, not obviously. I was not going to let anyone catch me paying attention, but I watched how Mrs. Kellerman asked Eli about his homework without it becoming a confrontation. I watched how Mr. Kellerman disagreed with something his wife said at dinner and did it without raising his voice or making it personal. I watched how Amber asked for things, not demanded, asked, and how differently people responded to her than they responded to me when I wanted something. I started noticing that I had been operating on a completely different set of social instructions than the ones being used in this house. Not wrong instructions exactly, instructions that made sense in the environment they came from, instructions that worked when the people around you operated the same way, instructions that did not work here, or, I was starting to understand, in most places outside of where I had grown up. Amber and I had a longer conversation about 3 weeks in. She had been in 3 placements before this one. She said the Kellermans were the first house where she had understood that the rules were not arbitrary. She said rules in a functioning house were not about control, they were about everyone being able to live together without constant friction. She said something I have thought about many times since. She said, "Acting like you belong somewhere makes people treat you like you belong, and then you start to belong." I said that sounded like pretending. She said it was not pretending. She said it was learning. She said there was a difference. There was a girl at my new school named Deshauna who I noticed almost immediately. She was not soft. She had an edge that I recognized and respected. She wore her hair natural and her nails done, and she had opinions about everything, and she expressed them clearly and without apology. She was also, I noticed, treated completely differently than I was treated. Teachers engaged with her, other students listened when she talked. She got things done by asking for them in a specific way that I could not initially identify. I watched her for about a month before I figured out what it was. She was direct without being aggressive. She was confident without being threatening. She could also disagree with people without making it personal. She took up space without making the space feel unsafe for anyone else. She was doing everything I was trying to do, but with a completely different set of tools. I started practicing, in the Kellerman house first, where it was safer to get it wrong. I asked for things instead of demanding them. I said thank you when I meant it. I apologized once, just once, for something specific, and Mrs. Kellerman accepted it without making it into a bigger moment than it was, which surprised me so much I went to my room and sat on the bed for 10 minutes afterward, wondering if I should pack up a garbage bag and wait to be picked up. At school, I started watching Deshauna more deliberately. I am not sure she knew I was watching. At some point, she started talking to me, not because I approached her, but because I had stopped being someone who made the air around her uncomfortable. We became friends over the course of sophomore year, not immediately, gradually, the way real things build. Deshauna had plans, specific ones. She talked about them like they were already happening, rather than like they might happen someday. She wanted to study hospitality management. She was close to her aunt who worked in hotel management in Atlanta and had told her the industry paid well and promoted from within and rewarded people who were good with people. I had never thought about hospitality as a career. I hadn't even known what that word meant in that context. I also hadn't thought about careers at all. But I listened and I filed it away. I stayed with the Kellermans through the rest of high school. It wasn't always easy, I had my moments, but I had a stable address and a dinner table and people who checked whether I came home and asked about my grades and came to my school events. Not because they had to, because that was what they did. That's what parents and caregivers do. There was a period in junior year where something from my past caught up with me in a way I am not going to detail here, and I regressed badly for about 2 months. Mrs. Kellerman sat with me one night when I was at my worst and did not try to fix it. She just sat there. She said, "I am not going anywhere." That was all. I have never forgotten it. I graduated high school. I was not at the top of my class. I was not at the bottom either. I had a diploma and a genuine letter of recommendation from my English teacher, and a plan that Deshauna had helped me build over 2 years of lunch conversations. Community College of Philadelphia had a hospitality management program, 2 years, an associate's degree, a direct pathway into entry-level hotel and restaurant management positions. I enrolled using a Pell Grant that covered most of the cost. I got a part-time job at the front desk of a limited-service hotel near campus, entry-level, minimum wage, but inside the industry where I could learn. I was good at it immediately in a way that surprised me and then did not surprise me at all. Everything I had learned in the Kellerman house, how to read a room, how to adjust my tone, how to make someone feel heard without giving them everything they wanted, turned out to be exactly what hospitality required. I had spent 2 years practicing the skills that this industry ran on. My supervisor at the front desk, a woman named Miss Laurie who had been in hotels for 25 years and had seen everything, told me after my 3rd month that I had natural instincts for guest recovery. That meant I was good at handling unhappy guests. I thought about where that skill had come from, and I did not share that thought out loud. I graduated with my associate's degree at 20. I was promoted to front desk supervisor at the hotel before I graduated. After graduation, I moved to a full-service hotel in Center City as a guest services manager. Salary $38,000. I was 21 years old, and I had a salary and a title and my own apartment with my name on the lease. I stood in that apartment on the first night and called Amber. She was in her 2nd year at Temple by then, studying social work. I told her I had my own place. She said she knew I would get there. I told her what she had said that first night had mattered more than she knew. She said she remembered saying it. She said someone had said something similar to her in her 2nd placement, and she had been passing it along ever since. I worked my way through the hotel, guest services to rooms division coordinator to assistant front office manager to front office manager. I took every training the company offered. I got my certified hospitality supervisor credential through the American Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute. I studied for and passed the certified hotel administrator exam at 27. My general manager, a man named Mr. Okafor, who had started as a bellman in Lagos, Nigeria, and worked his way to general manager of a 4-star property in Philadelphia, told me after my CHA results came back that he was recommending me for the assistant general manager position. He said I had the technical skills, and more importantly, I had the people skills that could not be taught.
He said the ability to make someone feel genuinely seen in a brief interaction was worth more in this industry than almost anything else. I thought about the dinner table. I thought about Amber in my doorway. I thought about Deshauna ordering her lunch like she already knew it was going to be good.
I accepted the promotion. My mother called me about 6 months after I made assistant general manager. I had not spoken to her since high school, as she really did not maintain contact, show up at supervised meetings, or therapy. I do not know how she heard. Possibly through someone in the old neighborhood, possibly through social media. I had not blocked her. I had just not been in contact. She was warm on the phone. She asked how I was. She said she had heard and was doing well. She said she was proud of me. I was not used to her speaking to me this way. Her voice had the specific quality of someone who wants something and is building toward asking for it. This sounded how people behaved around me now, but this was very fake. I waited for it. It was what you can imagine. Been having a hard time, hours had been cut, behind on some things. She said she just needed a little help to get through a rough patch. She said she knew I had worked hard and she was not asking for much. I sat with that for a moment. I thought about the garbage bag. I thought about the nights I had figured out dinner on my own because nobody had thought about it. I thought about the caseworker coming and Tanya not fighting very hard for me to stay. I thought about 15 years of building something out of nothing while she lived her life. I said, "Mom, I am glad you called. I am not able to help you financially. I want to be honest with you about that now so we do not have a misunderstanding later." She asked how I could say that. She said she was my mother. I said I knew. I said I also knew that the hard work that got me where I was had not included her, and I was not going to rewrite that history. I said I wished her well, and I meant it. I said if she wanted a relationship that was not built around what I could provide, I was open to that conversation. She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand for a while. I did not feel guilty. I felt something cleaner than that. I felt like I had told the truth to someone who had rarely been told the truth, and that was the most I could offer. She has not called back. Maybe she will someday. The door I described is still bare. The Kellermans came to my promotion celebration dinner. Mr. and Mrs. Kellerman and Eli and Amber, who flew in from Seattle where she now works as a licensed clinical social worker. We sat at a round table at the restaurant attached to the hotel and ate a good meal and talked for 3 hours. At one point, Mrs. Kellerman reached across and squeezed my hand and said, "We always knew." I told her she was not allowed to say that. She laughed, I laughed. It was the kind of table I had not known existed until I was 15 years old and placed in their house. Deshauna is a director of sales at a resort in Miami now. We talk every few weeks. She does not know how much that lunch table meant to me. I have never found the exact words for it. Some things you just carry. We're going on a cruise with Amber in March. I am 30 years old. I am an assistant general manager at a full-service hotel in Philadelphia. I earn $78,000 a year. I have an apartment I decorated deliberately, and a savings account that is growing, and a retirement account I started at 22 because Mr. Ofaker told me to, and I had learned by then to listen when people with more experience told me things that cost me nothing to try. I think about the anger sometimes, not with shame, with something more like understanding. That anger made sense where it came from. It was the right tool for the wrong environment. The work was not getting rid of it. The work was learning when to put it down and what to pick up instead. I still have it. It comes out occasionally in ways that are now useful rather than destructive. When a vendor tries to shortchange us, when a guest is rude to one of my staff, when something is unfair in a way that needs to be named. The difference is, I choose now. I did not always know you could choose. If you are somewhere right now where the anger makes sense, where it was built for a reason, and it has kept you safe, and it is the only tool you know, I want you to know it does not have to be the only one.
I know it's hard. Sometimes the anger needs someone to talk to, so get some therapy if it's ever an option. You'll learn some new tools. Think of it that way. Watch the people who get what they want without burning everything down to get it. Watch how they ask. Watch how they disagree. Watch how they take up space without making the space feel dangerous. It's a language. You can learn it. It does not mean forgetting where you came from. It means adding something to what you already know. The dinner table exists. You can find it. You can build your own version of it. I promise you that you can.